Minister responsible for the wildfire service with natural resources and Indigenous futures. As of late yesterday, there are 18 active wildfires in the province. The total number of fires this year is 96. And for comparison, the 20-year average number of fires on that date would be 77. So we're well above average. Notably, we have burned over 198,000 hectares in Manitoba this year. Our 5-year average annual hectares burned is 70,500 for the entire year. So we have almost tripled the amount of area burned in just 1 month compared to our annual average. Notably, all but 4 of the fires to date are confirmed or suspected to be caused by human activity. And this is an abnormal level of fire activity in the province for this time of year. That's largely due to conditions, the temperatures, very low humidity, lack of precipitation, and a lot of available fuels. Manitoba does have the highest fire activity in Canada so far this year, due in part to that prolonged period of warm and dry conditions we have had. I just want to move over and talk about a few of our fires of note. We have a number of priority fires right now in the province. I won't be going over all of them in detail, but we do plan to issue a bulletin later today with updated sizes on all of the fires that are burning. Our main priority this morning is Fire West 24 near Flin Flon. That fire started in Saskatchewan on May 26th near Creighton. It had been actioned by Saskatchewan, and unfortunately they weren't able to hold it, so it entered Manitoba yesterday. We've been working very closely with Saskatchewan on suppression efforts. Due to the fire's intensity, we weren't able to put a lot of resources onto that fire yesterday, and neither could Saskatchewan. Unfortunately, aircraft had to be grounded off that fire yesterday as well due to a drone incursion in the airspace over the fire. Which is disappointing that folks are not hearing the message that flying a drone near a wildfire is dangerous and does impede our efforts to respond. We are hearing this morning that the fire does continue to grow, so we are doing assessments to figure out exactly what the extent of it is, what fuels are nearby that fire, and how we're going to be able to respond to that today. And we will be updating both the City of Flin Flon and Creighton on that later this morning so they can make some decisions, which Christine can talk about. In the west, we also have a significant fire near the community of Sheridan. This is Fire West 17, a very large fire that continues to grow to the northeast of the community. Fire North 2 near Lynn Lake and Marcel Colomb First Nation is also one of our priority fires. There is a concern with the shift of northwest winds that all of these fires in this region may travel towards communities in the next 24 hours. And then I'll move over to the east and just talk about the fire in the Nopaming area, East 61. We continue to fight that fire on a number of different fronts. It is very active and continues to be active both on the north and south flanks of that fire. We'll have updated information on that later this afternoon, as well as Fire 63 in the White Shell area. Continues to be a lot of active hotspots on the north end of the west flank of that fire. There are a number of other active fires in the province, and we anticipate that conditions may lead to more human-caused starts because the conditions are very, very dry in all areas. So we do ask Manitobans to be very mindful of their activities out on the landscape. I will leave it there for now.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Christine Stevens. I'm the Assistant Deputy Minister with the Manitoba Emergency Management Organization. Last night at 7:40 p.m., Flin Flon issued a pre-alert evacuation notice to the community, asking residents to stay alert and be planning for a potential evacuation on short notice should it be required and should the situation escalate. We're asking folks in the community of Flin Flon to pay attention to the direction of local officials as the situation is dynamic and it is changing hour to hour. The Office of the Fire Commissioner is in community supporting the local fire department with suppression operations, response planning, and incident command. Proactively, the Flin Flon Hospital has started to move patients out in preparation. Coordination is happening between the province and the local government, and we continue to remain engaged. Thank you.
Thank you. The situation with wildfires is very serious in Manitoba right now. If you're in Flin Flon, we're asking you to prepare for a potential evacuation. On the city's Facebook page, you can see information about how to get ready, and if the order comes, we're asking you to listen. For Manitobans and the rest of the province, now is the time to get ready to support. The hotels are already full across Manitoba, and so we're going to be turning to other folks in the community, not necessarily private residences, but companies and communities across the province to potentially open your doors. If we have to move a community of 6,000 people, thereabouts, then we are going to be turning to people for help. So that's the Coles notes of the message here today. Couple specific details. You've heard the extent of the wildfire season. We've been moving people out of communities across Manitoba for several weeks now. You still have hundreds and hundreds of Manitobans out of their home, plus with the usual conferences and other activities, the hotels are full. If we need to move people, we will be turning to congregate shelters. We're already turning to that in certain situations around the province today. It's a complex effort. It involves coordinating healthcare and, different levels of government, and then, of course, great people in communities across the Manitoba landscape to respond. However, we want to underline the severity of the situation. We are not going to be calling for nothing. So if you do get a call from an official asking you to open your doors, whether it's a rec center or a larger facility or a building, we need you to take the call and to say yes. This is a very, very important time as we look at Flin Flon, a well-known community and a very large community, potentially looking at an evacuation at the same time that many other communities are already there. One of the upshots of what we've seen so far is in typical fire seasons, you would have one region having a challenge at a given time. It would be the east, it would be the north, it would be the west. This year, it's all the regions at the same time. And so that is presenting an additional level of coordination that's being required of us. And so we're turning to you, the people of Manitoba, because this is what makes us who we are as Manitobans. The willingness to step in, step up, and help out when situations call for it. So what can you do if you're just the average person out there? Well, we want you to observe all the fire bans, for sure. If you're in an area threatened by wildfire and an evacuation order does come, we're asking for you to obey that and to cooperate. And then no drones. Like, getting some views on YouTube is not worth it. You got a community of thousands of people who's on the verge of evacuation, and one of the reasons is because we couldn't fly water bombers in the area. And, putting your drone up there and getting a video that you can share is simply not worth it. You have to put the good of the community ahead of your own interests right now. You should probably do so at all times, but especially right now when we're dealing with an emergency situation in many parts of the province. Again, it's a very, very serious situation. I wanted to spend a bit of time thanking people who are helping out. New Brunswick has sent firefighters who've started to arrive in Manitoba. This follows the folks that we've had from Parks Canada, from Alberta, British Columbia. Prince Edward Island is sending folks to help out. So it's been really great to see our fellow Canadians step up and lend a hand during Manitoba's time of need, because we've been there and will be there for our neighbors during their times of urgency. And I also just wanted to send a special shout out to the firefighter from Parks Canada who is injured fighting the flames here in Manitoba. From what I understand, that person is in hospital right now. And I just want to say thank you for what you've done to help out. We wish you a very speedy recovery. And the entire province is got your back, as well as the back of everybody on the front lines right now. So with those comments made, happy to turn it over to the room for questions.
Kristen, what are resources like right now with so many fires in so many different regions? How are you managing all of this at one time?
Resources are stretched thin. Obviously, we're seeking out-of-province support, so that's a signal that we need some assistance. We have been very fortunate to get assistance from other provinces when we've asked, so we've been able to staff up all of the priority areas that we need to.
And on that note, how do you prioritize the fires? There are some communities who feel like they've been forgotten about, or their communities are being left vulnerable due to the sheer number of fires happening in the province right now.
There's a lot of factors that go into decisions around where we put resources, and it changes constantly all day long. So we're constantly assessing the risk to, number one, people's lives and their communities, their homes. Secondly, to other values, whether that be utility infrastructure, forestry values. There's a lot of different things that we're looking at out on the landscape. It depends on fire behavior. So which fires are going to do what? What are the winds doing? What are the conditions like in those areas? What's the available fuel for those fires? And so there's a lot of different factors that go into the initial decision of where to put resources. And then on an ongoing basis all day, we're constantly reevaluating and repositioning resources as needed.
I've spoken to people on the front lines of the wildfire fight, and these are professionals. These are people who are going above and beyond, who are working really hard all day to the extent that they have to sit down and debrief with trained folks on the mental health side at the end of what they've been doing. The decision to send resources is based on how serious and how acute the situation is in Manitoba right now. If you think over the past few days, we've moved from different regions of the province being the most acute situation, and then you have a community like Chemawin and Easterville that went from a fire start to an evacuation very, very quickly. And so the expertise that the wildfire service is showing, I think, is just phenomenal. And similar situation in Flin Flon. You go from a situation where the fire changed pretty radically. It's exacerbated by the fact somebody's flying a drone to try and get some video footage for their TikTok, which is just inexcusable right now. And that situation is now on the verge of potentially being an evacuation too. So I think the decision to deploy resources, it needs to be understood from a global perspective when we're talking about the whole province. And we've got the best of the best fighting the fires in Manitoba right now.
Les résidents à Allen Lake disent que le feu là-bas a commencé aux mines d'or Alamos Allen Lake, que votre gouvernement a aidé à ouvrir. Comment est-ce que vous réagissez à ça?
Je voudrais remercier Alamos pour toute l'aide qu'ils ont livrée chez les feux. Nous avons vu que Alamos a préparé des nourritures et puis partagé ça avec ceux qui luttent contre les feux. Nous avons vu des offres de Alamos pour la transportation, soit par autobus, soit par avion, pour ceux qui vont être évacués. Alors, ce qu'on a vu avec Alamos, c'est un partenariat productif, constructif. Oui, c'était un feu où ce qu'on a vu beaucoup d'attention parmi les derniers quelques jours. Mais notre message au sujet des feux, pas juste à Lynn Lake, mais tout partout dans la province, c'est que on doit être vraiment engagé avec les ordres et puis les demandes, ce qu'on entend maintenant, parce que on n'a peut-être pas la preuve que beaucoup de feux étaient causés par les humains, mais si c'était pas un ours avec un zippo, on pourrait dire que oui, c'était des humains qui ont commencé ces feux. Alors, il n'y avait aucune pluie, il n'y avait aucune tempête. Alors, on pense que c'était des humains. Je pourrais partager des chiffres. Il y avait 15 personnes chargées depuis le commencement de cette saison. Il y avait 21 personnes qui étaient livrées des warnings. Alors, c'est une situation très sérieuse. On pourrait peut-être, et puis je parle toute la province, et puis depuis le début de saison, mais on pourrait vraiment dire que c'est une situation très, 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 très sérieuse, et nous demandons à tous les Manitobains de profiter de cette opportunité pour aider les autres, juste par écouter au message qu'on partage avec le public.
Should Alamos Gold then be charged for starting a fire on their site, or presumably starting a fire on their site?
What proof do you have that Alamos is connected to the start of the fire?
Yeah, but all the residents say it started at the mine site.
So what proof do you have?
I guess we're waiting on the investigation still, but generally, could you repeat what you just said for my colleagues in English about your message to Lynn Lake residents?
You know, I used to be a daily news reporter, so I say this with the utmost of understanding for the pressures that everybody in this room deals with, but I really do think that responsible reporting is very important right now. Journalistic Standards and Practices book, and just making sure that you're not reporting hearsay and that stuff is double sourced before it's getting shared with the public, I think is very, very important. Not to say that that's a specific commentary on this, but just across the board. We've got a very specific message out here today. Flin Flon, a large community in the north, is on the verge of evacuation, and we're asking for people to listen to the message. We're asking for people to get ready, and we're asking Manitobans in other parts of the province to open your doors if the emergency officials come calling. So,
We heard.
I was just going to continue on that point. Happy to answer your question in a second. When it comes to Alamos, I want people to know that they've been a good partner in the response so far. Alamos has prepared a ton of food that they're putting out the door to help people with the wildfire response. They've already transported people by bus, and they've made the offer to make planes available. And so it's good to see that businesses are stepping up. And now as we look to not just Lynn Lake, but also other areas like Flin Flon and other parts of the province, we want to make sure that Manitobans are going to keep with that positive attitude and all-together response.
We heard in the fire bulletin yesterday that the firefighter was injured this weekend. How is she or he doing right now?
Maybe you can start and
Sure.
go back after.
We can say that the firefighter did sustain severe injuries. They are in hospital and reportedly doing well.
You think about somebody who has come to Manitoba to help us during our time of need and they get injured seriously. We got to take our hats off. We got to thank that person and wish them well. So again, to them, get well soon. Thank you so much for helping us out. And to just the average everyday families out there watching this situation, hopefully this helps to reinforce how serious the situation is. People are putting themselves in harm's way to protect life and limb and property right around this whole province.
Just for your previous answer in French, could you talk about in English the people charged and the warnings given?
Yeah, absolutely. Part of the message today is it really is important to take the fire ban seriously and evacuation orders seriously when they come. If we look at the whole province since the start of the wildfire season so far, we've seen about 15 people charged. Well, not about, we have seen 15 people charged, and we've seen 21 people issued written warnings just related to, being not fire smart, let's say, to be charitable. You look at all the fires that are starting across the province right now and how they're accelerating, that tells you that the situation is really dry, it's really hot. And when we think about human-caused fires leading to a lot of threats, we can't say at this point that we have an investigation that has provided conclusive proof that a given fire was started by humans. Those investigations will continue. But if we use our common sense, unless there's a muskrat out there with a Zippo lighter, without rain, without lightning these past few weeks, it's humans that are starting these fires. So again, not casting blame, not trying to shame people, but just trying to be straight up that we need to be really, really careful about backcountry travel, really, really careful about fireworks and fires in the outdoors, really careful about cigarettes, or people tell me people are smoking other things other than tobacco too, so be careful with that as well.
Of the 15 people charged, have those charges related to any of the fires that are currently out of control or any of the priority fires that you're aware of?
It speaks to the severity of the overall wildfire situation and why Manitobans ought to take the warnings very, very seriously. We can't talk about intent or like a specific thing like that because maybe it's carelessness or people may not even be aware that their actions led to a given situation. But the point is, we know that we haven't seen rain recently. We haven't seen lightning. So it stands to reason that there's human activity that's leading to a lot of these situations. And it may be well-intentioned people who don't know that they're causing wrong, but let's just be really careful.
What would lead to an evacuation of Flin Flon? Can someone just elaborate on the circumstances there? I know it's dynamic and changing hour by hour, but is it road access or is it the actual community is being threatened by the flames?
Yeah, do you want to start?
Sure.
Follow up as needed.
You know, evacuations are declared as a proactive measure to keep people safe. And the decision to evacuate a community is really based on a number of factors that include scientific information, expert judgment, and real-time conditions. So that evaluation is ongoing when a community is facing, you know, this type of threat, and it'll continue to happen. And that decision will be made if it's needed to be made.
The community makes the final call based on information from various provincial departments.
Yes.
You talked about drones. You also talked about the importance of people opening their doors to help people because their hotels are full. I just might want to hear you in French about this.
Comment on dit drone en français? Drone? OK, c'est pas mal. Hein? OK. Ben, regarde, il y a des situations très sérieuses au sujet des feux, des incendies, et puis les drones nous causent un défi. La ville de Flin Flon est presque dans un état d'évacuation à cause d'un feu où hier, nous n'avons pas eu la chance d'utiliser les avions parce qu'il y avait des drones dans l'air. En même temps, tout partout dans la province, nous voyons que on pense que la plupart des feux étaient causés par des humains. Ça se peut que ce n'était pas intentionnel, mais ça juste nous donne un message que c'est très sérieux et nous devons être très engagés avec les messages que nous publions.
Just maybe hospitality, you said that the hotels are full, so businesses, you're asking people also to be welcoming, I think, right?
Yeah, au monde d'affaires, nous demandons de nous aider. Si les officiels vous demandent d'ouvrir votre porte pour un centre communautaire ou un grand édifice, s'il te plaît, engagez avec eux, ouvrez votre porte. Parce qu'il y a déjà des centaines de personnes évacuées de la communauté. En même temps, il y a des grandes rencontres et puis des conférences ici dans la ville de Winnipeg. Alors, il n'y a pas beaucoup d'espace chez les hôtels. Alors, si nous demandons, c'est pas une blague, c'est pas quelque chose, juste un truc qui n'est pas important, c'est une situation très sérieuse. Alors, nous vous demandons, comme des Manitobains qui veulent aider, d'engager avec nous.
In terms of the Flin Flon potential evacuation, like you said, it's a significant population. For people that are waiting for that call right now, are there specific communities across Manitoba that they should be planning to go to? Who has the capacity right now?
Yeah, well, I think you're probably thinking about Winnipeg, just given the size of our community. But it's important to listen to the local officials in the city of Flin Flon. Whether that's through social media or radio or, just any messages that you might have received door to door. Let's just stay in touch and stay on top of it. There's things that you can do right now in terms of packing a bag and getting ready. The Facebook post on the city web or city social media has a good list of things that you should pack in terms of IDs and medication and things you'll need in case you do have to leave your home. We're not saying that you need to leave right now, but we're saying that ask could come relatively quickly. And so right now, the best thing to do is to just get ready, make sure your vehicle has a full tank of gas. And if that order comes, we're going to have a ton of information about where to go and how to get there. But for now, it's just get ready. And to the rest of the province, this is who we are as Manitobans. We help each other during their time of needs. And I just want to give people the heads up before we come forward with that ask that we need you to step up. Please don't be surprised if that ask comes in the next few days.
Kristen, we keep hearing about how the wildfires this year are high above average. I'm wondering what steps could have maybe been taken differently this year to prevent this, and what steps will be taken next year so this doesn't happen again.
Can I just jump in there? I think I would return to the comments at the start of the press conference, which is that it's novel in the experience of the wildfire service to have all regions fighting serious blazes at once. So right now, we're in a situation where we're trying to manage resources efficiently and coordinated across multiple governments, including our partners in other provinces. And when we talk about the lessons learned, I think one of the things we're going to have to take out of this season is that the climate is changing, and the idea that we may have to deploy across all parts of Manitoba at once will probably want to be one of the first things we take a look at.
I was wondering did you have any clearer numbers of how many firefighters we're getting from New Brunswick and PEI?
I do. 20 personnel from New Brunswick arrived last evening. A further 2 individuals will be coming over the next week. We're getting two people from Prince Edward Island, and we expect another 28 personnel from British Columbia as well to arrive this week.
And how many are they already on site?
I don't have current numbers just because there's been a lot of transport in and out, but we can report on that in our bulletin today.
We're on Zoom.
Okay, we're going to Zoom. No, we'll come back to the room. We'll come back to it.
Thank you, Premier. One reporter from the Brandon Sun, Michelle McDougall, one question, one follow-up.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my question. I imagine, as you've been explaining, the resources are pretty much at top capacity. My question is about accommodations. Do you know how many people are in the Westman region right now, including Brandon?
That is, yeah, we'll have to follow up on that. We do track that information. I just don't have it here right now.
And next question, it's under the umbrella of preventative. It might seem unfair, but what are your crews doing in areas that are standing by at risk? And in our area, we think of Riding Mountain National Park, and I know all areas in the province are important, but do you have crews working on that? What can we do to prevent fires from starting in other areas?
Yeah, well, I think let's be fire smart, and that's a specific term. Like Google Fire Smart Manitoba and see what the advice is there. And again, like, you know, you can't throw smoke into a pile of red pine needles right now. You can't start a fire or set off fireworks right now. You can't, be careless about anything that might start a blaze. So that's things that we can do as individuals. Certainly the wildfire service has great expertise, and, you know, those resources are being deployed to do things like build fire breaks and to do value protection and all the other things that we can do to try and protect communities who are being threatened by fire activity. And one of the challenges that the wildfire service is facing in Manitoba is that because it's so dry, because we haven't gotten any rain for, however long it's been, a lot of those preventative measures are being breached or being passed by wildfire. So again, it's a very serious situation. We got the best of the best on it. We can do our part by not contributing to human-caused fires, but at this stage, one of the big things we're asking is for people to be prepared as businesses or communities across Manitoba to open your doors in case we do start having to move larger amounts of people.
For people who live in...
That's it for Zoom, thank you.
For people who live in provincial parks, they don't have a mayor, for example, to reach out to if they are looking for some updates or questions before these press conferences, for example. Who should they be reaching out to?
Yeah, you can reach out. It's the province, right? So whether it's specifically the parks, department, or whether it's, us as the political level, like reach out to us. And I think folks have been working really hard to make sure that the information is getting shared.
I've spoken with a couple of people who said they've reached out repeatedly and received no answer.
Yeah, I think we can definitely follow up if you have specific people, and we can continue to reinforce through all the different channels that we have that the information is being shared.
So with all of this being said, is it time for a province-wide fire ban?
I think we've thought carefully about the message to share today, and the message really is that the situation is serious in Flin Flon, that we're asking people there to get ready for a potential evacuation, and we're asking people in the rest of Manitoba to listen to the orders, to not start fires, and of course to get ready as communities or businesses to open your doors if that call comes. As a province, we do have other tools in the toolbox, but I think we're thinking carefully about the message to share right now, and it's really focused on Flin Flon and what other Manitobans can do to help.
Just going back to Flin Flon and being prepared to evacuate, what's the plan for personal care homes, the hospital? Like, how do you prepare for that? What's the plan?
Well, the plan moved into action yesterday evening. So we actually did start moving medical patients yesterday. I can turn it over to Christine to provide a bit more details, but we have already had to activate that given the fact you do have folks living in hospital, personal care homes, and then people with high medical needs in the community.
Where were they moved to? Where are they being moved to? Are they being moved to the city? Hospitals here in the city?
Well, I think maybe I can turn it over to Christine to provide the information that I was queuing her up for, and then we can follow up on more specifics there in a second.
You know, when communities plan for events like this, they develop, they have emergency plans and they have evacuation plans, and they do have plans in place for vulnerable people who are in personal care homes and in hospital, and they're activating their plan right now. I'm not going to comment specifically on those types of details at this time, but I do, you know, they have started to proactively move patients with high acuity out of the Flin Flon Hospital. And in terms of where people are being moved, they're being moved to appropriate facilities that can meet their needs.
Yeah, and I just add that this is a province-wide response when we're talking about health. You have public health nurses who are visiting evacuee reception centers and congregate shelter spaces. And every health region has been notified that they need to take into account a person's evacuation status as they're planning discharge from hospital.
Anything else?
In terms of planning from the province, are you looking ahead, kind of planning as if this is going to be, this level of fire response is going to be needed for the whole summer and the fall?
You know, there's a ton of planning going on, and that's how you are able to start moving patients out of Flin Flon very quickly, or to redeploy firefighters and firefighting resources to various parts of the province in response. But like, again, just to underline, the message today is that Flin Flon, we're asking you to get ready for a potential evacuation, and people in the rest of the province, when the hotels are already full, if we come asking for you to open your doors as a city or as a business, please respond, because it's a very serious situation.
Premier, you mentioned that a lot of the hotels are full for conferences and stuff. Is that something the province could, you know, get their hand into, saying, hey, cancel some of the conferences, let's make room for these people?
Well, like, we should be clear, there's still hundreds of evacuees in hotels in many communities across the province, including Winnipeg, and we still do have some folks from Ontario, which, you know, we've been happy to help, and that's great. And then, yeah, hotels book up during the summer months, right, for a variety of reasons, including conferences. And so I think in the first instance, we're asking folks today to let's just work together. So if we can, you know, see the convention center and the hotels do their thing, while we ask community centers, different communities and businesses to open their doors to help a potential evacuation. That helps us just have that level of seriousness to say to people in Flin Flon, we're asking for you to get ready, and we're asking the rest of the province to get prepared to help if we get to that evacuation stage.
Are you suggesting the convention center could be like a reception center, or are you saying that they should look at some of the events that they're hosting?
No, I didn't say any of that.
I was just wondering what you meant about the convention center. Like what role a place like that can play.
Well, what I'm saying is that we're asking any business that we turn to listen to our officials, because Flin Flon is on the verge of evacuation. It's potential evacuation. So folks there need to get ready, and people in the rest of the province should take stock of the situation where there's conferences and different activities and life goes on that front. We need to prepare for the potential to have to move many of our neighbors out of harm's way and towards safety. So if we come calling, it's not for nothing. It's not a prank. It's not something that, you know, you should, you know, think about when you have time. Like, no, it's a serious situation. Please do respond, and I know people will step up, so we just want to give you the fair warning, the heads up that these asks may likely be coming in the next few days.
And looking at those 28 firefighters brought in from BC, I'm sure as their fire season progresses, they won't be able to provide as much support to other provinces. Is Manitoba looking at other out-of-province or even out-of-country options for more support?
Yeah, out of province, like BC and Alberta and some of our other provincial partners have been really good about looking after the mental health and the energy level of the folks that they send by kind of rotating them, letting some go home and then, new folks come to fill those ranks. And so that's one of the tools that you have to use effectively, because it could be a very long firefighting season for some folks who may start in Manitoba and then spend more time in British Columbia. And part of the planning that we do is to make sure that we have the necessary firefighters. People across Canada have been great in terms of stepping up. It's been awesome to see. That's what makes us Canadian. And so today we're just saying there's a really serious situation in Flin Flon. Local residents get ready to move if that order comes. And people in the rest of the province, as firefighters step up, as people in Flin Flon step up, we may be asking you to help out as well too.
What about water bombers from California? We sent water bombers to them when they needed it. What about asking them to bring them here?
At this point, the message is really focused on Flin Flon and asking people to help out if we ask you to open your doors.
So is that off the table, asking California for help, and who would do that?
I just don't want a headline on one of your outlines saying like Premier doesn't rule out out-of-country resources, because that definitely did not happen in this press conference. I don't think that's an accurate statement.
But you're not ruling it out?
The accurate statement is that we're focused on Flin Flon and asking Manitobans to step up. This is like a public safety message that we're sharing today, and so I just want to keep the focus on that.
Okay. Another topic?
Sure.
Premier, in January, you announced the Your Way Home strategy to try to end chronic homelessness in 2 terms. This past couple of weeks, there's been reports of one of the service providers, Main Street Project, helping some people move into an encampment. And I don't know if you've asked about it or know about what the circumstances were. We haven't really gotten an explanation, but the minister has said that's got to stop. I just wondered if you had any thoughts or comment or understanding of what went on here.
Yeah, I do, and I think we'll have more to share on that soon.
Good. Merci.
Okay, merci beaucoup. Merci tout le monde.